Okay, everybody, let's take it from the top.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Hi-ho, everybody, and welcome back to D Plus Us, the show about all things Disney. I'm one of your hosts, Griffin, and now Griffy D. Padding with me, as always, is the wonderful, the amazing Mr. Mitch George. How are you doing tonight?
I am hooked on a feeling and ready to go.
Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic episode, folks. We are talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but of course we cannot do it alone. Brad, welcome back to the show. How you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Love Guardians. I'm excited to talk our favorite ragtag group of heroes.
Yeah, this is, of course,
Or
the
what
finale.
might be the last time.
For most of them.
Oh.
Or maybe none of
We'll
them.
get into it.
It's really hard.
We'll
Well,
get
we
into
know
it.
for Drax and Gamora, but
That's pretty much it, yeah.
we don't really know for anyone else. We'll get to that, though. Let's get some housekeeping out of the way first, folks. First up, thank you very much for listening. If you were listening to us and you don't know, we do have a YouTube channel. Go check out our video content. I keep talking about this video that's coming up, that we're actually doing video-only content. It's so close to being done, guys. It's so close. I'm so close to being done with this damn episode.
You sent me a draft, and I plan on sitting down after this and watching that and giving you any of my feedback.
It is
but
literally just
damn,
the
am I ready
intro.
for this thing to come out?
It's literally
Oh.
just the intro with spec recording because I was on a roll. Timeline is the
fun,
real thing,
but that's
folks. No, go check out our YouTube link in the description of the podcast. And if you're here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button to check out all of our stuff. With that all out of the way, folks, let's hit y'all with the facts for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, directed and written by James Gunn, starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Karen Gillan, Palm Clementif, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, Will Poulter, Sean Gunn, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Linda Cardellini, Nathan Fillion, of all people, and Sylvester Stallone.
Finally.
Yeah, finally ends up. Released April 22nd, 2023. In its premiere at Disneyland Paris. I just want to shout that out because also Karen Gillan has one of the funniest TikToks I've ever seen of her at the premiere and her bodyguard. Go check that out.
What I found funnier was her wanting to take breaks from actual like premiere stuff to just go and ride Space Mountain.
That's
which is just
the one I'm
all
talking
of us. Okay.
And the funniest thing to me is like her and her friends in one cart. And then her security guard alone in the cart behind them, looking so annoyed. But yeah.
Which, how can you be annoyed? You're at Disneyland. Like, come
Disneyland
on.
Paris, of all places. But yeah. Actually released on May 5th, 2023. Runtime of 150 minutes. We got a budget of $250 million and a box office so far of $536.1 million. Guardians 3 is out. It's been out for a couple weeks. We're just now getting to the recording. Sorry it's taking us so long. Brad, I'm going to start with you. What did you think of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3?
I adored it. It's in my top 5 MCU overall. I've been a huge fan of the Guardians much since that came out. I love James Gunn's unique voice, especially among all the kind of blockbusters we've gotten. I mean, the last episode that I did with you guys was Quantumania, which was just a big mess that felt like it could have been made by literally anybody. And so to come from that, especially, and then go into Guardians, where it's so distinctly James Gunn, his weird, very heartfelt, very sincere vision, a beautiful send off to these characters that we've followed for almost 10 years now. I adored it.
Yeah, this movie is fantastic. I don't think I love it as much as a lot of people have. I think a lot of it is really, really hard to watch for me. And that comes along to the lines of like the story of this with Rocket, and we'll get into the actual spoiler stuff of it later. This is also the best soundtrack that Guardians has had. For me, the actual music choices to me are the best choices they've had. The use of it, a little less so. I think this might be the weakest of the usage of the music. But as far as the actual songs themselves, it's my favorite. I love where these characters end up. I love these characters. I love that they got the ending they wanted. I also love how they consistently just kind of like pew away the stuff that's happened in other films that James Gunn hasn't done. Like, let's just pretend none of that ever happened.
It doesn't have to, because I think James Gunn has told a very, other than the whole, and I think the in-film explanation for what's going on with Gamora was actually handled really well. Of like, yeah, other movies killed this character, so it's Gamora, but not Gamora, and that's pretty much it. And I can echo a lot of what the two of you were saying about this film. I think from a like the film, I think the story that's told from beginning to end, this entire trilogy has been probably my favorite trilogy in the MCU. I think it might not be the highest point of any trilogy. I still think that belongs to Thor Ragnarok, just given where that character started and where he ended up. But I think just overall, these three Guardians films are my favorite trilogy of films in the MCU. That being said, there were some interesting decisions here. I think the big one that we'll get into, and I think that's what Griffin was alluding to with not having difficulties watching some of it. This definitely harkened back to a lot more of James Gunn's horror roots with a few
body
scenes, which I
horror
was
with
not
Nebula, especially.
not even that. Like the animal stuff for me is what got me like had me not wanting to rewatch this movie. And I do think the music choices here felt very unlike James Gunn compared to what we've gotten in the previous two films and the holiday special. Other than the song at the end, nothing here really felt like it mattered in the moment. It was just there was a song. Whereas in previous films, I can talk very vividly about the scene that used Cherry Bomb in the first one, or
See, there's two moments of those for me. There's two songs that they do that I did think really hit. The thing is they both did the same thing. It's hard to talk about this without spoilers. So I feel like we should just jump into spoilers now. Because we all clearly want to do it. So folks, go watch the movie coming back. Obviously, you've
already seen it at this point. The movie's made over $500 million. It's going to top $1 billion by the end of the theatrical run. You've seen it. We're late getting to it, so we're happy to have you here to talk about it with our sort of post-mortem. But yeah, Griffin, go for it.
So, Creep. Loved that. I love them opening that, of Rocket playing it throughout the entirety of Nowhere. Everything happening with Quill being absolutely blasted drunk. Them carrying him back. All of that, I love that. And then the other one I really loved was the ending with Dog Days Are Over, which is the exact same thing, but celebratory.
Yeah, see, that was the one I was alluding to. Of that really made it work in that moment. We're all in tears at that point with the way that movie wraps up.
But they get a cheap shot.
At least I am. I don't know about everyone else, but it definitely felt like they were cheating a little bit with that song, because it just there's a joyous energy to it that you needed in that moment. Just because it is a celebration of these characters and the legacy that we've been, building over the last 10 years for these characters that, I mean, other than the most hardcore of hardcore comic fans like Griffin, I didn't know the Guardians before these movies came out. I was vaguely tangentially aware of them, but not to the extent that James Gunn and company have made us love these characters and love where they are at the end of this trilogy, and love where some of them might end up in future MCU productions. TV, I still, like, I know we're probably going to tangent a bunch here, and this is going to be my first one. I knew going into this that Rocket and Groot would not die, because a Rocket Groot animated Disney Plus show, it just prints money. Like, it's going to happen. There's no reason for that not to happen. And it totally makes sense within the context of the MCU that these two characters are still going to be doing stuff, just probably on a smaller scale, not to the budget that James Gunn has had with these three films.
Yeah, I thought for sure that we would get some sort of death in this movie. I'm really shocked we didn't. At the same time, I'm really happy we didn't. I'm happy that we got all these happy endings, like Drax especially for me. Drax and Nebula in particular were my two favorites. Of like Drax actually like dancing for the first time in the entire MCU. Seeing him with the kids being a dad was fantastic. And seeing Nebula kind of step into this leadership role, and like, I think this is the first movie we've actually seen Nebula smile.
I think you and I discussed a little bit of this before going to the movie of what we wanted to see. And the thing that I wanted most was if they're going to kill off Drax, because Dave Bautista was very adamant, like, this is the last time he's playing the character. And when you hear that, you hear, oh, so we're killing this character in this movie. Got it. The thing that I wanted most is I didn't want the character to go out without that redemption, right? Because we've seen it in comics, we've seen it in television, we've seen it in gaming. I do think the Square Enix Montreal Guardians game is just phenomenal with the story it tells around Drax as a character. And I'm glad we got some sort of redemption for that character from this as a parental figure, because we know that was what led him down the path to finding the Guardians and joining them. Was, we see him have this same moment as Quill of getting drunk on Nowhere and summoning Ronan in the first film. And it's nice to see that character finally kind of fulfill his legacy of being a dad. Like, that was just really great for me to see. And I'm like, okay, so he's at a point that now they can just never use this character again. It's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I love Drax comic book wise because he's such a goofy character. Like, he is this mass murderer who on his free time hangs out and plays the saxophone. I thought for sure we would get a saxophone reference or something in this movie. I'm so disappointed we didn't. But actually allowing him to be goofy and, like, really playing up, like, his comedy, I think, hit more often than not. Where it's like, we re-reviewed Volume 2 way back when the Guardians movie came out, and I kind of felt this way when we talked about Guardians Holiday Special. Drax's humor in those just does not hit for me. Drax's, like, kind of incessant teasing and bullying of Mantis in Volume 2 especially, it was just not my thing. If y'all find it funny, great for y'all. But playing it up even more so of, like, the back and forth between him and Mantis, or, like, every mission they do, Mantis makes someone fall in love with Drax, and, like,
that was the funniest interaction in the entire goddamn movie.
And you better believe I was bawling my eyes out when they say goodbye to each other. Like, God, this movie just makes you feel things, and
it also makes me feel, like, less than enthused about the future of some characters. And I feel like this entire movie was just Will Poulter's audition to play Superman in Superman Legacy with James Gunn. And mark it here. You can come back and quote me. I do think that he's probably in the running, might end up with the role in that movie. But it just felt like Adam Warlock here was just not...
pointless, kind of pointless.
Not necessary. Like, there was no reason to have this character in this movie. I think he got his redemption at the end, and you get the weird, Sistine Chapel moment with the finger poke and stuff. And, like, that's funny and tongue in cheek, but there's no character behind Adam Warlock the way that there is in the comics. I think this character's got some really interesting layers in the books, and we don't get nearly enough of that here. And that's kind of disappointing for me, but understanding, it's a 2.5 hour movie, you're not going to get exactly what you want out of it. But, like, I feel like we got more character from Cosmo than we got from Adam Warlock, which is saying something given the prominence that Adam Warlock is going to have, presumably, with the future of this space squad.
Dude, I wish we got more Cosmo. That was such a great running gag. Like, you're a good dog. Are you a bad dog? No.
I saw a weird article today of someone on the internet was just berating James Gunn of, like, why would you change the dog's gender? Like, why would you change this from the comic origins? It's just like, well, the dog is based on the Russian space dog that, tragically died in space and wouldn't have existed. The character wouldn't exist without that dog having existed. And that dog was female. So why can't Cosmo be female? It's like, yeah, well, why would you change it from the source material? It's like, in the comics, Drax is a human that ends up having his consciousness beamed into this other body because of the traumatic death of his family. Like, there's things that they've deviated from already, yet you're upset that Maria Bakalova, who was phenomenal here, I think she gave a great performance as Cosmo. Does it really matter if the dog has a girl voice or a guy voice? Like, it's just
spoiler
dumb.
alert, it doesn't. These people are just sexist. But
well, there's that, yeah.
I also need to quickly shout out D. Bradley Baker in this. Because D. Bradley Baker's in this. D. Bradley Baker is Blurp.
Is that like
he's the little
dude
dog
that
thing.
Nathan Fillion doesn't like? Oh, he's
the little dog thing.
The one that Adam Warlock liked.
I love that thing so much.
I just assumed that was Alan Tudyk because whenever Disney does a weird creature that makes noises, it's just Alan Tudyk.
See, I had no idea. I
used,
learned that when doing research for this episode. So.
He used D. Bradley Baker as the rat in Suicide Squad, so I guess that's why he brought him back.
I love
Makes
this.
sense.
There's one more thing I do want to shout out here, which was just kind of funny to me, which is we got Phyla-Vell in this. That's the kid at the very end, which is such a fantastic thing. Like, clearly she ended up being Drax's daughter and whatnot. Because that is a character I actually know fairly well from the comic books.
Yeah, because she's a member of like the original Guardians team, right?
Yeah, and she's the girlfriend, wife, depending on whatever run, of a character called Moonstar, who is Drax's daughter.
Oh.
I love it when just like dumb little things like that come full circle, and that is this show or this movie. Like everything.
I wonder too,
circle.
like it's another MCU property introducing a young, superpowered individual. And I keep banging this Young Avengers drum, and Phyla-Vell now lines up in age with a lot of these other characters. Give us the Young Avengers already!
Look, I'm not sure how they would make that work, but they've done crazier, so.
Kamala Khan ends up in a spacesuit next to the sword base. Like, they can figure it out. It's fine. It's comics. She goes to visit Peter, who's hanging out with his grandpa talking about his neighbor's lawn. Like, it's fine.
Another weird thing, there's actually a recast in this movie as well. That's kind of fun. Mainframe, who was previously voiced by Miley Cyrus, is now voiced by Tara Strong.
Another MCU they're pulling double duty.
She is also the voice of Miss Minutes. She should be the voice of everyone. Tara is amazing and wonderful. If you don't know her, go watch anything. Yay. Go watch anything animated. Tara is probably in it.
And does a great job.
Mm-hmm. Trying to think of any other fun like little bits before we actually talk about the actual episode or movie.
It's fun that Nathan Fillion finally got to be in a Guardians movie and you see his face.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you technically do in the second one, but it's a Wonder Man poster. And in the first one, he plays an alien in prison, so you don't actually get his face. So it was nice to see him on screen and have an actual acting, like visual acting role where you can say, hey, that's that guy that I know from that thing.
And his character is actually really funny.
Yeah.
That scene when they're like playing poker or whatever in Nowhere, Lloyd Kaufman was there, who he worked with on Trauma. He cameos in like all of his movies. The dude at Peter Quill gets the Power Stone from in the first movie. The guy who runs the shop or whatever, he was at the table.
Yeah,
Obviously, Howard the Duck was there again.
We also had one of the lead singers from
the band.
That
from the
whole
Holiday
poker
special.
scene was just a who's who of just the previous Guardians projects.
I still want Howard the Duck to do something significant that isn't just Seth Green doing a cameo in these Guardians movies. Just give us Howard the Duck.
He was in the fight on in Endgame in the background. That was fun.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. He was.
Look,
He was canonically part of that fight.
I still want a Marvel special presentation that is just like what Howard has been doing this whole time. Like, he starts a detective agency on Nowhere, and like that's how you set all this up.
I would love to see some weird, like, okay, so I love talking about Marvel Snap. We all know how much I talk about Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap's a really fun mobile card game that you can play with Marvel characters. It's real great. They just released Howard the Duck, and Howard the Duck has really interesting synergy with the Iron Lad card. So what if it was, Howard the Duck is doing some investigatory thing and ends up just befriending Iron Lad in some way without knowing that it is a Kang variant? That could be fun.
That could be. As I'm looking through things, another one to call out. Judy Greer, who is Maggie Lang, is in this movie. She is Warpig. She is the voice of Warpig.
Huh?
There's some great voice cameos in this that I'm currently reading. James Gunn is the voice of Lambshank, one of the High Evolution.
And of course, you mentioned Linda Cardellini, who voiced Lila. Obviously, she's Linda Barton in the Hawkeye show and Endgame and Age of Ultron. Even on the ship where they go to find out more about Rocket, James Gunn's wife is there, Jennifer Holland.
Yeah, Jennifer Holland's one of the security agents.
Upsets the crazy Snyder fans so much, which is hilarious. God forbid he use the same actors that he likes.
Also,
And
God
no
forbid
one else
his
in
wife is
Hollywood
just.
has ever done it.
His wife is also just an amazing actor.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have Daniela Melchior as well playing Ura, who was in Suicide Squad, right?
Catcher, yeah. So
Pete Davidson's also
like
in this movie.
Yes, he is.
He's another one of the
creations.
creations.
He's in Nowhere, right?
No, he's another one of the High Evolutionaries creations.
Right, yeah.
I think he's like that really fucked up one at the end.
That I think he actually also cameos, I think, in the scene where they're loading Nowhere up with all the animals and the kids and stuff, because there was an on-set photo of him just dressed in normal human-looking clothes.
Mm-hmm. Trying to see. Got any other fun ones here? Looking through the list.
I mean, Michael Rooker coming back and giving us a Yondu cameo was another moment where I cried because
So
of
did
course
they
I
film
did.
that, or was that old footage?
No, that's film.
Sure, that was new.
Okay,
that was new.
I liked that because I knew that he would cameo in some fashion. I mean, he even cameoed in the holiday special. Rooker, he's in all of Gunn's movies. Obviously, they're good friends. But I figured it would be for like another Quill flashback. I like how they used it for Kraglin. For his.
It made more sense from a character perspective.
It was cool.
Peter,
there was not really anything else.
I mean, Peter having to focus back on his terrestrial roots, I think, was a great way to end that, or to end this story with that character. Although, after that post-credit scene, the legendary Star-Lord will return, which is where we're getting Kitty Pryde in the MCU. I'm telling you now, Griffin, they're going to do that, and we're not going to be happy.
I'm sick of Chris
They're going to do it. They're going to do it. And it's going to be really weird when they cast like a 20-something as Kitty Pryde, and then Chris Pratt's just over here doing Chris Pratt things.
I don't think they're going to go that route, but I do think
I hope not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe become an Earth hero. I don't know. It's going to be terrible. I don't care. I don't need to see more of Chris Pratt. I'm sorry. Like, he's great in this role. I love Star-Lord. I'm good. You gave us some great stuff. You can go.
Back to Yondu for a second. Like, I'm convinced now at this point that Gunn is going to use Michael Rooker as Pa Kent in Superman, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I'm also here for it.
Hear me out.
Weird, otherworldly reason.
Perry White.
That would also be okay, but I saw. Oh, I can't remember. Someone did a fan cast, and I can't remember.
Imagine Rooker just yelling Kent. And that's all you need. It's perfect. Also, of course, we're talking about DC here, folks, because if you didn't know, James Gunn is going over to DC to be one of the I forget, it's like
CEO.
CEO?
He will be leading the creative side of DC Studios, right?
Where he has one hell of a team that is currently on strike.
Yeah, you have Peter Safran who's going to do all the business stuff, and then Gunn is going to be responsible for the creative side of things, as well as he's writing and directing the Superman movie, which will be the first new film, or the first new film in this new DC canon that they're trying to shoehorn the Flash into for some godly reason.
He wrote the Creature Commandos show as well, the animated show.
Yeah, and that I think is coming before Superman, which is why I didn't say it was the first project, but it's the first feature film.
No, I'm just going to say...
And he'll be doing Peacemaker 2 whenever that comes as well, which I think he said was after Superman, so that'll be a while
We'll see how
away.
that all ties in, especially after that Shazam post-credits scene, and how that all...
I still haven't seen it.
The Shazam post-credits scene somehow ties together Shazam, Peacemaker, and Black Adam.
Yeah.
I should probably watch Shazam.
You don't need to.
I
It's
don't know
a
if you really
bad
need
movie.
to. It's not very good, no.
Bringing it back, there's one performance above all that we need to talk about, and that is Chukwudi Iwuji. Cannot say his name right. I'm so sorry. Being one of the best villains we've gotten since Thanos. Probably, period.
I'd say overall in the MCU, yeah, certainly up there. Yeah.
I think he definitely has that menacing presence that you want from a villain in this. I don't know if there was enough build of the character other than, it is very easy to hate a dude who is experimenting on and I would say mutilating. I mean, in this case, CG, but if you can suspend disbelief, like animals. Animal cruelty puts you at the top of everyone's fuck you list, and that is where they stay. And that's that. I'm surprised PETA hasn't come after this damn movie with the amount of animal mutilation that goes on, even though it is CG.
They praised it,
I
actually.
think PETA knows better than to fuck with Marvel fans.
Did they?
No, they actually praised Gunn for using it as a way to like show empathy for animals and show like how bad, mistreatment of and experimentation on animals is. They actually did give like the honorary award or whatever to him. I don't know what you call it, but they did actually say something positive about it.
Kind of
PETA calls
that
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 the best animal rights film of the year. Say the film has helped audiences see animals as individuals and suggesting that just because we can experiment on them doesn't mean we should.
No shit.
Direct quote.
Yeah. No, I think what was interesting about it is like the High Evolutionary is definitively unredeemable, and we don't.
Yeah, he doesn't try to do any sympathetic backstory for him or anything.
No, he doubles down.
Yeah.
If anything, he does the little bit that he gives us is kind of what they did with Ultron, where it's like, oh, he's on the internet, he sees how shitty humanity is, and then he's immediately evil. There's like one line where he's like, oh yeah, I went to Earth. They're really cultured, but they're also bigoted as hell, and so I wanted to make a new planet. And I'm like, he's not wrong.
He's right.
He's right. He just went in a strange direction with it.
He just also used that as an excuse to experiment on helpless creatures. But no, I love
really
that we
like
don't
that
get
line.
many Marvel villains that are like purely unredeemable. Which
That's true.
I would love to see more of that. Like, this is the worst of the worst. You are rooting against this character.
I think that's why it's hard. It's hard to compare this villain to someone like Thanos or someone like trying to think who else is kind of on the redeemable scale of things. Killmonger, where like you can agree with the things that they're doing, although the end doesn't justify the means. Whereas here it's just like, no, you're a dick, and Star-Lord needs to kick you in the dick if there's a dick there still. I don't know, because he's done a whole bunch of self stuff too. But yeah, it's just a very different kind of villain, so it's hard to compare apples to oranges, at least for me.
What I especially liked is this guy goes out like a bitch. This guy wastes all of his power on other things to when they actually have a final fight, he gets his ass handed to him. Which is, again, a thing we just don't typically see. Because you watch him,
everything he does leaves him alone, right? Like his self-destructive, single like directed vision of I need Rocket. Like that is just his sole purpose in life is to collect Rocket to continue to evolve things. Is his downfall, right? It ends up with him being alone, him having no support. And the Guardians kick his ass because they're a team. And of course they are. They've been doing this for 10 years. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah, I'm so happy, though, that everyone got a shot. Like, everyone got a hit on this guy because everyone deserved it. Like, one of the hardest scenes for me to watch in this movie was, ironically enough, everyone else watching what happened to Rocket. Like, that is hard to watch.
That's
Mantis's screams are one of the hardest things to listen to in this entire movie.
Where Nebula's like, this is worse than what Thanos did to me. Like, because we've seen several movies now of her talking about how horrible Thanos was, and we even see him kind of torturing her in Infinity War. So for her to just say that, like
they have a crack about it in this movie.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Well, just like it just adds more credence to them feeling like a family. And there's that great scene between Gamora and Nebula of like, we're family. It's like, yeah, but he's family too, right? Like she's spent like, especially Nebula and Rocket, knowing what they went through with the blip and those 5 years where everyone else was gone and it was just the two of them out of this crew. Like, there's just something about their relationship that I'm glad that, and Karen Gillan is on it. Like, put her in everything. She is phenomenal. Fantastic. Like, having known her since her Doctor Who days, like just seeing the her going quote unquote mainstream. I mean, Doctor Who's fairly mainstream.
She was a Doctor Who, for God's sake.
I was gonna say, but I mean, just seeing her grow as an actor, like with the Jumanji films, as much as you may or may not like those films, I think there's a lot of Like she's got star power, and I think Hollywood needs to recognize this and put her in more stuff because I
Karen
think
Gillan is officially now
awesome.
like the kind of actress of I will see anything she's in,
Yeah,
because she is that like Nebula is my favorite Guardian.
Yeah,
And
she's up there for me too.
if you had told me that
Even
Nebula and Mantis were my favorites at the end of Guardians 1, I would not have believed you.
like that scene where she finds out that Rocket survived and
Oh
she
my
just
God.
starts like choking up, like that got me. That was honestly like one of my favorite parts of the movie. Like I love it. Like it's just a very subtle, brief scene, but like it speaks to the relationship and
it speaks to the growth of the character, right?
There's a
Because
lot of
again, like with everything they've been through, looking at what this character was in Guardians 1 to now, it's night and day. And I kind of love that from Nebula and from
art.
Karen's performance.
I want to talk about that scene a little more, because like there was a lot of scenes where like I'm either crying or there's emotional, but that scene fucking broke me. Because it's like you watch this movie and like she is the one holding everything together for the entire movie. So to actually give Nebula this emotional moment that we have not seen from this character ever, to finally have that, was just such a powerful moment. And then to immediately rip it away with the High Evolutionary showing up.
I started like bawling as soon like towards the end after like he and like Star Lord and Gamora say goodbye, like their one goodbye. But like I full on was ugly crying when we saw Nebula like all happy. Like it was such a like perfect final shot for her. Like after everything she's suffered, everything she's gone through, be surrounded by people she have that family, and finally be happy having overcome the abuse that Thanos put her through. I lost it. Like I love that scene.
Mm-hmm. Also,
Might be my favorite.
Also, her dynamic in this movie with Mantis, of like her being very hot at them and Mantis being like, "Dude, calm down," and like it's like taking her to town, taking her task, telling her like, "Look," especially with Drax, of like, he might be an idiot, but he's the only one of us that doesn't hate himself. Great fucking line.
Which honestly, like, there's a lot of fun poked at Drax throughout this film, and I think that scene in particular between Nebula, Mantis, and Drax just adds so much to the dynamic of these three characters. Of we all know he's an idiot, the audience knows he's an idiot, but he's their idiot, and they're going to defend him to the end of time, and he proves that he's not just some muscle, right? And I think that's like he has this great interaction of Nebula of just he starts speaking to the kids and they everything's great. It's like, wait, you didn't tell us you could speak their language, and his response was, "You didn't ask." And I think it's really great to see kind of both Dave Bautista as an actor and Drax as a character coming into this role of setting Drax up to be a father figure and setting Drax up to be this character that will live on in our memories. Because if Drax comes back, it's not Dave Bautista, and I think the same for Gamora is.
Yeah, they want to
the characters that they could recast those characters. I'd rather not see them recast those characters. One, because they've already ingrained them in so much pop culture, whether it be lunchboxes, books, TV, theme parks, like they're everywhere. So I think these characters are these characters, and there's no reason to change them. Let them have what they were through these films, and that let that be that.
But Mitch, you're the one that's saying we're going to recast everybody after Secret Wars.
That's also true. Well, I think Secret Wars is going to act as a soft reboot to the MCU, similar to Flashpoint for DC.
Look, someone had to say it at some point in the Marvel episode. Sorry.
These actors cannot go on playing these roles forever. We're seeing that in this film, and I think we're going to get to a point where, maybe some of the actors will carry on post Secret Wars, and some, gives them an opportunity to do a fresh retelling of some of these characters. Like you can't have the MCU go on for another 20 years without there being a Tony Stark. Like it's not going to happen, and I don't want to see someone in that role because Robert Downey Jr. was perfect. But that being said, Iron Man prints money, so they're going to want to make money, so they're going to want to do this at some point.
Well, the idea, just quickly, there's characters who have been around longer than Iron Man or just as long as Iron Man we've seen several Batman, we've seen several James Bond. Part of the appeal of James Bond is seeing a new actor and new filmmaker take him on all the time. So as great as Downey was, like I have no doubt that there will be other good ones out there. It's obviously just finding the right one. And I mean, Marvel, to their credit, Sarah Halley Finn, like casting is always on point. Like, so
Yeah,
I
they can
have
do
no
no
doubt.
wrong at this point.
They know, like, come that time, like, even whether it's Feige in charge or whoever takes over after him, like, they know that like getting a new Iron Man is going to be like the most daunting casting job probably that they've done since the start of the MCU. So, like, they're not going to like settle for
Yeah, they got to
the first
recast the
person they
X-Men,
find.
and then they're going to do that. Like, the thing about it is, like, they're coming up with some really interesting casting stuff with that, because they had to recast Spider-Man, which is a whole thing of its own. You're going to be
You got the
recasting
Fantastic Four with the baggage that holds from the Fox times.
which you
right?
could probably honestly put anyone in those roles at this point because of how much baggage there is, but that's beside the point. But the X-Men is the one that's going to be wild, because it seems like we're recasting most of the X-Men.
Which is
Even
why
Joker,
I don't think that happens until post Secret Wars, because you're gonna see Logan and Ryan Reynolds, and like you're gonna see these characters that you're familiar with pop up in that film or in those films, because multiverse shit is weird.
Look, there's too
and
many
then it'll
unannounced
just be
things
something
before
net new
Secret
post
Wars.
Secret Wars.
There's too many unannounced things before Secret Wars for us to not get the X-Men before that. But
I still don't think we're gonna see X-Men until after Secret Wars, or it'll exist in some parallel universe. It'll be a parallel Earth, and Secret Wars blows everything up, and now that Earth is part of the main MCU Earth or something.
oh god, don't give us another Ultimate. We don't need another Ultimate, whatever the one was when the Ultimate world clashed with the Marvel 616 world.
With Secret Wars.
Was that? That was Secret Wars, yeah. But what was the
was-
lead
yeah.
up though? There was a specific name though for the lead up of the death of the universe.
Oh, it was like the Convergence or something like
The
that.
Convergence. Thank you. Also, the Ultimate Universe is coming back.
What?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
They're calling it Ultimate Invasion.
Whatever.
All these characters are coming back. I don't know
To
why.
your point, we were talking about Drax. I'll just say, you mentioned the Eidos Montreal game, which, yeah, I agree is great and criminally underrated. And when that came out, a lot of people were comparing it to the movies, of course, because that's always what happens. And I particularly saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, Drax was better." I was always like, the Drax in the game was better, and I was always like, I don't know if it's really fair to compare a 20-hour game to a 2-hour movies. But regardless, I think what I like, especially because he's, like you said, was portrayed more seriously in that. But I like where he ultimately brought Drax in this movie, because, like we said, he's. They kind of leaned in on the fact that he was a bit of the class clown. Like, I like what you said about he's their idiot. I kind of like how he found the value in that humor for the character. Like, didn't necessarily. I feel like the easy thing to do to redeem him in some people's eyes could have just been, make him super badass and serious in this movie. Like, he fights Adam Warlock and utterly wrecks him or something. But I feel like he did the more creatively interesting thing where he honed in on that softer side of Drax, where he is a father. He didn't necessarily, like, I love that line where it's like, "You're not a destroyer, you're a father." The easy thing I think to do would have been to lean in on him being the destroyer. So I kind of like that he doubled down and just made Drax more of a softie than we saw him. Like, I think that's a sort of a natural progression for this version of Drax. Not to say the other one isn't good in its own way, but I like that it makes sense for this character.
Although the comedy aspect of that, like when he's introducing himself to that dude that Mantis makes him fall in love with,
Yeah.
it's like, well, what's your name? It's Drax the Destroyer. Like, it's still his identity, right? Which I think is still really funny from that character. Like, it lends itself to who Drax is in the comics, of this deadpan character, doesn't understand sarcasm or analogies or any of these things, which they lean into here as well. That scene between Mantis, Drax, and Star-Lord. Which I love that scene.
It's the
There's
beautiful
just so
thing
much about
about
this movie to
Drax
love.
is that he can be both, and that he is both. There's no either or. And we get that with a lot.
Sure.
Like, we talked a little bit about it, but like Gamora in particular is one of those where it's like you got a lot of range you can do with this character. But I'm really happy they took Gamora where they did. Of let's cut it back, let's make Gamora be a badass, but let's also give her like what she's looking for. Like, she's still looking for that family that she was looking for in the first movie. She found that in a different place this time. Gamora is still one of the deadliest people in the galaxy. Like, let's play to the strengths that this character has had before. She's kind of mysterious. Let's use that. And I really think they did a good job with every character in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's, again, what's so fascinating is the easy route would have been, either ignore Gamora completely because, we'll just pretend there wasn't an alternate Gamora out there, or just like wave her off in a one line, she's off with the Ravagers. Or you do the cliche thing where she does get with Star-Lord, but he did neither of those things. He leaned into the fact that there's another Gamora and used her for for Star-Lord's arc of, this arrested development that he's been stuck in. He's constantly been running away from his childhood trauma on Earth. I like that, has to kind of face Gamora rather than just waving it away and realize that, they can't be together. It's such a beautifully poignant moment between them where, we were so fun together,
It's what James Gunn
and,
does best, honestly, is giving us this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
And it kind of gives like a happy ending to Gamora in a sense, like the happiest version that we could see where, obviously our Gamora is dead. She'll never come back, but we can see what if scenario where even if she's not with Star-Lord, at least she's happy. She's with her family. And she even has her own little arc of empathy, which is obviously the sort of larger guiding theme throughout all these movies. Gunn's human empathy for these like broken people, where she starts off the movie thinking, oh, these are just a bunch of bleeding heart idiots. And she comes to understand who they are. And even if she doesn't join them, she understands why they are the way they are and, kind of parts with them on nice terms. And I like that.
Yeah, that moment between Star-Lord and Gamora when they're departing is just like, we must have been we were fun together, right? It's like, yeah, we were the best. And it's just like he gets that closure from that time that he had with Gamora, and I think it will set up more like it opens up Star-Lord as a character to opportunities to find what it is that he's lost over the years. But I also just love that last moment between Gamora and Groot where
she
understands him because they've spent enough time together in this film for her to learn Groot, and then we as the audience get our moment, which I absolutely bawled for when I realized like we're hearing it because we spent this much time with the character, and that for me is just like, oh my god, we saw him when he was a little baby Groot, and we got those shorts on Disney Plus that almost nobody watched, but we did. And just like, oh my god, they're not great, but it lends itself more to understanding, with the amount of time we spent with this character, we get it now too. And granted, they'll completely forget that the next time we see Groot in anything, which is fine. But that Gunn giving us that moment for me was really, really special.
I loved it.
So we got a couple more characters. We talked about most of the characters. I want to go back to Mantis because we've talked about bits and pieces, but the character as a whole, like again, one of my favorite characters in this movie, one of my favorite of the Guardians. I love her ending so much. Of her going off with the Abelisks, I think is what they were called.
I think so.
And like one of the fun things about
Battery
Nebula
things,
is Nebula is like this roaming wanderer character. And like actually getting to see her go into that and go find herself in a role of like, yeah, when you really think about it, she's 100% right. Like she was only living for ego, then she was only living for the Guardians. She needs to figure out how to live for herself. I think it opens up her story in a really cool way of like, hey, maybe we could see more, maybe we won't. Either way, this is a very satisfying conclusion to this character. Like, I love it so much. And then also, yeah, the goodbye to Drax was heart-wrenching.
It's a good moment for him too to realize that for all his brawn, he's the big muscle of the team. Something she needs to do on her own. Mm-hmm. Like his first inclination is, I need to go with you. I need to protect you. But he quickly realizes like, no, she's capable on her own, and something she's got to do.
Mm-hmm. And then there's one more character we haven't really talked about, which is wild that we are 42 minutes into this podcast and we haven't talked about Rocket. We haven't talked about Rocket at all.
Well, because to be fair, Rocket is in a coma for 80% of this movie.
It gives you like some of the most traumatic flashbacks we've ever gotten in the Marvel universe.
Okay, so Griffin, this won't resonate as much with you.
Oh, is this a year-old thing again?
No, it's a Toronto thing of
50-50.
The raccoon?
Yeah, Torontonians have a very love-hate relationship with the raccoon, so much so that it's almost a mascot of our city. My wife owns a shirt that has a raccoon on it because of how much it is an icon of Toronto. And it's one of those things of like, you hate to see them, and now if I saw a raccoon in the street, I'd be like, it's not so bad. Look, it's just a little raccoon. It's not. It's just one of those things of like it's made me not hate raccoons as much. And as a Torontonian, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I love Rocket in this. Little Rocket is adorable, and it's heartbreaking seeing.
His first word is hurts. Like, it kills me. First thing he says to them, hurts. And then there's that beautiful moment where Lila licks the cloth and gives it to him. Just a tender moment. Like, between them, and then
But just like the amount of hurt that this character's had to go through just to get to that point, it's just, oh my God, it breaks my heart every time. And like, we get to that, like all of these flashbacks, we get to the moment where like everyone dies after Rocket annihilates the High Evolutionary's face, and just the distress from Floor of like, we gotta go. Like that is like Floor's last moments are Floor's last moments are the trauma of that, and then getting shot in the head. Like, what the, like, how?
And the whole
What I
time,
love-
Rocket just screaming.
Yeah, he's just clawing.
Well, even before that, when Lila dies and he's
Yeah.
just standing there screaming, was like, just fuck.
Yeah, like I
What
feel
I
like we
love is
haven't
that,
talked
like-
in. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I love that this was obviously James Gunn's plan the whole time. He was setting it up in the first movie. How, like, when Rocket pulls off the shirt, you see all the scars, and he talks about how he was kind of poked and prodded at. But like, even like this movie recontextualizes all of that so much. Like, even at the end of that movie, after they beat Ronan, and Drax is like about to put his hand on Rocket, and then Rocket like flinches because he's so used to people putting his hand on him to hurt him. And like, now that we looking back on that scene, like, it's just everything in those movies now, it just hurts so much more with now that we know more about Rocket.
Yeah, like we have that scene, like again, going back to the scene between Drax and Rocket on Nowhere of like, you've lost everything. Great. We've all lost things. Like, just because you've lost things doesn't make your loss any bigger than anyone else's loss. And just seeing the trauma here makes, like, I love, like, this is something that the MCU has done so well up to this point of, we have films that make other films better. And like the Guardians movies were already, for me, top 10 films in the MCU. And I think going back to rewatch either of them now with the extra context we have around Rocket and Drax and Nebula, it's gonna make it that much more impactful, which is just you can't do that with traditional filmmaking. And the fact that the MCU exists the way it does and can tell these stories the way it does is just, it's special.
Yeah, it is really great. With Rocket in particular, having him like not really have too much of like a change in his character. Like every other character has like massive change in their character from where they are at the beginning to where they are at the end, except for Rocket, which is wild because Rocket like easily has the most like therapeutic moments in this. But it's because Rocket already knew where he was. He's gone through all this. He's had to unpack all of this and deal with all of this. And he did so. Just did so privately. It's not something you really get to see all that much of, like, something like that go well with this kind of character. And you have some of those great moments there, like, where he does accept himself. Like, when he does the cheesiest shit that any superhero movie can do, but it's still always fantastic when he's like, I'm Rocket Raccoon.
Even that felt earned because, for all this time, he was rejecting that he was a raccoon. Like, I'm not a goddamn raccoon. Like, he even says it at the beginning of the movie one more time to Quill. So for him to kind of own that, I think is really cool. And one thing that I really liked as well is, and kind of touching on what you were saying, Mitch, about the larger MCU, Gunn had mentioned, I forget exactly how he said it, but in one of the interviews, he's basically like, was very conscious about the fact that everything Rocket does in the Guardians movies and even in like Infinity War and Endgame, and I guess Love and Thunder too, where everything he's doing is very self-motivated, where like even in the Avengers movies, he's really only doing it to save the Guardians. He could care less about the rest of the world, really. And Gunn said that was a very purposeful thing, where it's not until this movie where he does things for more than just he and his own, like the Guardians, like his immediate family. There's that great moment at the end where he's getting all the raccoons, and then he goes back and looks at all the other animals, and he's like, "Guys, we've got to save all of them." And then there's that great scene where they're all leaving. Like, I love that. It's such a full circle moment for him, where he's done running, he's done sheltering everything, sees that there's more to him than just his pain and his immediate Guardians family, which he's finally accepted over the course of the last few movies, but. He's truly adopted. Like, he is the leader of the Guardians at that point. He is the hero, and I love that.
It's interesting too, going back and looking at all the other appearances of Rocket. We see it in in Guardians 1 with the leg. We see it in Infinity War where he's obsessed with Bucky's arm. Like his obsession with prosthetics makes so much more sense now, having seen that his family was a whole bunch of ragtag,
It also comes full circle
animals
though,
with
Nebula's arm.
prosthetics. Like it's
like he designed and created Nebula's arm, which
Yeah.
is just like that perfect thing of. First off, you got to assume that some of that tech came from Bucky's arm, right?
100%.
Like you got to just assume that first and foremost. One of the best moments in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. But like actually having him like build that for someone rather than taking that from someone else, it's kind of just those little details that really make that story.
She's got like the Mega Man arm.
Yeah, exactly. The Mega Buster. I still
Buster,
can't believe we're almost an hour into this. And we've glossed over one of the most significant contributions that this film makes to the MCU. This film has the first F-bomb in the entirety of the MCU, and that might be the best line in the entire goddamn movie.
Honestly, it's one of those things where it's thrown in so casually that I kind of just move past it.
It's not like it was so casual that it threw me off of like this. What?
I'm just happy that like we're finally moving on from that to some extent.
Yeah.
Like my favorite interview
that
thing
got it in there
was the conversation between Kevin Feige and James Gunn that they were talking about of like Kevin Feige's being like, you don't want to be the person known for dropping the first F-bomb. He's like, James was like, have you met me?
It's like, if I'm going out, if you're going to remember me for one thing from all these movies, it's I got the first F-bomb in these damn movies.
I wish we didn't know about it ahead of time. That would have been a fun kind of.
I didn't.
Moment.
I had no idea going into it. So, like, I
saw all the interview stuff, like you mentioned about Feige and whatever, and and I saw a clip of it online. I tried not to watch it. Like, it would have been kind of fun if it was kind of like Days of Future or First Class when they walk into the bar, and then obviously Hugh Jackman's cameo, which is a big surprise, and then he's like, "Go fuck yourself."
So
but we can't get stuff like that. We can't get surprises in movies anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm very lucky for the fact that like I saw this movie a week before it came out. There was like a special fan screening, so I'm sure that if I hadn't seen that, then I might have gotten some of those moments spoiled for me as well.
Probably
so it is unfortunate that happened, but yeah, that's probably how I was able to. It was funny too, like going into a movie like this, being like, how many post-credit scenes does it have? Because usually, like the credits start rolling and my phone comes. I'm like, how many scenes in this movie? I couldn't do it for this one. And it was kind of nice. Yeah, you normally can look it up if you're going on Thursday because people have seen it at that point. But this one's just like, no, all right, I'll sit through the whole thing, man. By golly, was it worth it?
Yeah,
that was me in Fast 10 last night. I'm like, I'll just stay till the end and
stay till all the lights come on and the credits stop scrolling.
Watch the people because those people in those credits are fantastic.
Yes,
they deserve 100%. The credit.
Movies don't happen without every single person you see come through.
Well, even this movie, Guardians, like it was playing like the greatest hits, like of all the movies.
The photos and stuff.
Even that just hit right. Like we just saw the team like. This is the end of this team, and then we're seeing all of the photos, like a little collage of all the memories we've had with them. And even at the start, where the opening intro, the Marvel Studios crawl, is all the Guardian stuff specifically.
So good.
I'm like, even that right at the start hit me. I'm like, oh man.
I want to talk about theater experience on this one for a little bit because I had a freaking two wildly different experiences with this movie. The first time I saw it, there was one other person in the theater. One.
Really?
And I saw it on Thursday night.
That's just bizarre.
It is shocking to me that it was that way. And then the second time I saw it was on this last Saturday. And there was a ton of people in there, and it was great. So the theater was still far from full. But it's interesting to me. It's like we can still have that, and like this is still a massively successful movie. But I'll tell you what, when there's like no one in the theater, like the one guy left partway through. It's great when you actually get to just sing along to the songs in the movie. I'll tell you what.
I mean, you don't just do that in a full theater like I do.
Hell no.
Does that make me a bad person?
Yes.
Oh, well, then I'm a bad person. Because like I said, I got to see this at an early fan screening and it was oversold because they want to make sure the theaters is full. And to see, like, this to me felt like, going to see No Way Home. It felt like going to see one of the Avengers movies on opening night because every single person in that theater was invested in these characters. Every single person knew what that opportunity was to see this movie early, to not have anything spoiled, to everyone is going in at the same level unless, you know, you've read into rumors and leaks and stuff like that. And that was this is the first time I've felt like this in a theater since No Way Home, and it was nice to feel that way again. And then my second showing was very much the you know, we went to the 19 plus only theater with the full leather recliners that only seats like 60 people. So it was a much more subdued group, but even then it was fun to see it with a buddy of mine who, when I turned and he was snoring halfway through the movie, having to elbow him to wake him up was fun. But you know, it's hard when you're in those full recliners of like, if you're all the way back, it's really hard to focus.
The thing about seeing this in a theater though on your own was it made this movie a really, really intimate experience that I was just not expecting to get out of this movie, especially with how emotional and how deep this movie goes. It was almost kind of perfect for me. Like, I love one of my favorite things about Marvel movies in general is those big pop-off, the fans being like, oh my God, what is happening? Hearing people's reactions to the thing. It's why I love movie theaters. But for this one, it was different, and I really loved it.
Well, and to the point of like what you were saying with your friend like beside you kind of falling asleep, and even like the energy in the crowd of the advanced screening. What I like about this movie as well is we've seen from some people, and obviously Quantumania would kind of suffered a lot from it as well. Like there is from a lot more casual audiences kind of like an indifference to the MCU, or at least a lot of the projects, because there's just so much to keep up with. Like I've seen it with a lot of friends that I have who aren't as avid into that universe, where they like it's too much to keep up with and they've checked out and they haven't watched a lot of it. But what I've seen from a lot of these people anecdotally, either speaking to them personally or online, is they were really excited for this movie, because it's like, oh, the Guardians is a high point, you know, knowing that it is an ending, even, you know, however many years from now, Marvel will in some way bring these characters back. Just knowing that at least for now does tell the story, does wrap up the story, I think was appealing to a lot of people. It's not like going into Quantumania where, you know, oh, that's setting up the next phase of several movies. It's like, oh no, this is a complete story. I don't really have to have seen too many other things. Like, and then it was just obviously a genuinely good movie in its own right.
Yeah, I saw an interesting. I forget who tweeted it, and if I remembered, I would attribute the tweet. But it was a thing of like, maybe this is the less superhero fatigue and more. We've had so many of these movies now that we're not necessarily going to accept we can poo this away because it's a superhero movie. We want these more thought out things, which I both agree and disagree with. I think we have way too many superhero projects coming out right now. And I'm saying that as a superhero nerd. But
again, because for every Guardians 3 or the Marvels that we get, we're getting a Kraven the Hunter or Morbius 2 or whatever the case might be, right?
Muerto.
I forgot that. We're getting the Flash still. I've mentioned that more than once on this podcast, but like that's still happening.
That movie.
We're getting Aquaman 2 still, and Amber Heard is still in it. What?
Yeah,
because the first Aquaman made over $1 billion somehow.
And guess what? The second one won't, based on early test screenings.
Shocked they haven't canned it. But no, I think it's an interesting point to make of like, there's a standard of quality that people are expecting out of superhero movies now. And I think Guardians was one of those movies that set it. Like, I'm talking Guardians 1. Like, kind of set a bar that we are still at today. And seeing Guardian 3 not only match it, but smash it wide open. Go flying past it. I feel really good about, like, just the future of superhero movies, whether it's Marvel, DC, whatever, of, like, man, we can still make some really cool shit.
Yeah, like, and I'm hoping we get cool shit on... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to your point, you know, we're getting all these random projects like Morbius and whatever, which are obviously just extensions of the brand. They're just trying to flex the IP. You can't tell me the person who goes in to make Morbius was genuinely passionate about making Morbius, right? He wasn't. Like, I'm sure he didn't... Yeah, I'm sure he didn't, like, it was completely nothing to him. But, I mean, he didn't go in like, oh, I'm such a big fan of Morbius. It's not like we hear James Gunn, you know, he thought about the material, you know, he was pitched it first. at first he didn't think he had an in, but he thought about it, and then he's like, I really see something in this raccoon. I really relate to this raccoon. There's a story there that I want to tell that he's had for 10 years now. Was fired, came back, still got to tell, and all those years was holding on to that he desperately wanted to tell the story. He even said, if it wasn't a story I really wanted to tell, I might not have come back, even if they offered it to me.
Which is the right approach to take. If the story doesn't deliver what you want it to deliver for the audience, why tell the story, right?
Like, it doesn't feel obligatory, right? It's not, this is an obligatory Phase 4 movie that has to set up Phase 5 or Phase 6 or whatever sort of thing. It's like, no, this is a story that he wanted to tell, and you can feel that passion throughout.
It's just, it's crazy. Sorry, I just want one more thing, and then I'll shut up. I promise. It's funny that we've gotten over the last couple of years the trilogy, quote unquote, acting as an it is the introductory phase of the character on multiple occasions with Marvel. We didn't get to Peter Parker being Spider-Man and having the Uncle Ben moment until No Way Home. Rocket Raccoon is Rocket Raccoon by the end of these 3 movies, as much as he doesn't want to be in the first, few appearances of the character. And it's just this, how Marvel can continue to develop these characters in such a way where as the audience, we don't see that coming, right? Like, you think, oh, Spider-Man is Spider-Man, but Homecoming, Spider-Man is Iron Man Jr. Far From Home, Spider-Man is S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. And No Way Home is when Spider-Man is Spider-Man. And it's very similar here to Rocket isn't Rocket Raccoon. Rocket isn't that leader that the Guardians need. And for the Guardians to be they're a ragtag group. And by the end of this, the Guardians of the Galaxy are Guardians of the Galaxy, if that makes sense. And it's really cool to see this storytelling progress through these trilogies the way it has on multiple occasions. It's awesome.
Well, yeah, to your point, these are characters first, and then their superhero or alter ego second. And I know that sounds kind of obvious, but I mean, we look in other movies where, again, we were talking about Ant-Man the last time I was on the podcast, where it wasn't really much to Scott. He's a dad, but it's not really a thing. It's just kind of act on. But with Gunn,
no, we made a joke about it that you could turn the number of times dad appears in the script into a drinking game.
It's mentioned, but you don't really feel that. Whereas with the Guardians movies, he's Peter Quill first and foremost. Star-Lord is just kind of the alter ego for him. Part of the reason why I love the Guardians so much is, and Guardians 2, I know my controversial take is Guardians 2 is my favorite MCU movie because I relate immensely to Star-Lord's story. And again, that's something personal that James kind of took from his own backstory, his own daddy issues, injected that into Star-Lord. And I connect that. I see the father and son moment at the end, and I lose it every time. It's my favorite needle drop of all the movies.
Is that still a hot take? Or people still annoyingly Guardians 2 is not as good as Guardians 1? I feel like we've seen more people come over to our side on that.
I think more people are accepting that now, especially with the quality of a lot of MCU movies and Hollywood movies in general lately. But yeah, I mean, they're all the time I was saying, "Oh, Guardians 2 is bad." I'm like, how? I mean, from that day one, yeah. Anyways, I wrote a 2,000-word letterbox review on it. I adore that movie, and yeah, I just think that Gunn just gets to the humanity of these characters so well, more so than I think pretty much any of these other filmmakers have done with these characters.
I'm looking back through the right now at the movies that have come out for the multiverse saga so far, and it's for me, this is definitely one of the best. I'm sure a lot of people will say it is the best. Obviously, it's all a matter of opinion, yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. But it's the thing that all of these movies have had consistently is amazing production quality. Every single one of these has been fantastic production. Ranges from good to great, acting, whatnot. But this one had a heart that a lot of them just didn't have, which I think is what really sets some of the best Marvel movies apart. The reason that Spider-Man No Way Home, for instance, is so loved, other than the actual nostalgia moments, is it is the heart and soul of Spider-Man. It is Spider-Man, why Spider-Man exists. Black Panther is so good because it is about loss. It is going to hit your heart in that way. And that's what Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is as well. And looking at like the stuff coming forward, like I can see how we'll get some of that. Like I'm still super excited for the Marvels. I don't think the Marvels is going to be that kind of movie. I could see Cap doing it. I don't see Thunderbolts doing it. Blade, no. Deadpool, no. Fantastic Four, well, who's to say about that franchise? Like, and we see some of it in the TV series as well. But it was really special having that again from a movie.
Yeah, I think the long form of storytelling that we're getting here across multiple films, whether it be a trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever the case might be, it's the learned experiences of the characters and us as the audience taking that in, and it is the trauma and the baggage that these characters, hold on to for, years that can manifest in very interesting ways and elicit a response from the viewer of, without the baggage that Star-Lord has carried from that first movie of getting abducted to losing Gamora to like that moment where Rocket is lying on the table doesn't carry that weight without that shared experience, without the trauma that we know that character has been through. And like, love him or hate him, Chris Pratt in that moment acts, and
Damn
he
good.
acts in a way that elicits significant emotional response from the majority of the audience. And I think he did a really good job in that moment.
It frustrates me how
And
good his acting is in this movie.
I mean, at the end of the day, just get in the fucking car.
But yeah, I mean, like these characters really got these actors really got to explore a range of emotion with these characters in this movie, and it pays off. It's fantastic. Like this is a movie. This is a must-see movie of the summer, easily.
Yeah, it is without a doubt, other than maybe Elemental, the most anticipated movie I had this summer. And maybe Indiana Jones, just because I know James Mangold is going to hurt me, and he's going to hurt me in the best way.
What? Not Spider-Man?
Oh, Spider-Verse?
Spider-Verse is in an interesting place where, knowing that there is more coming, I worry about the story they're going to tell here and whether it will pay off in a way that I felt the first film did in a really, really good way. Knowing that there's more story to come after this, I worry it's going to be the Halo 2 of the Spider-Verse franchise. And if you know, you know.
Dude, just watch some of those
The
trailers for
gamers
some
out
of the
there.
characters they're putting in this one, and those worries will wash away.
They will and they won't. I mean, great, yeah, you can have 90,000 characters in this thing, but if you can't, like, if the story doesn't resonate or deliver in a way that the first film did, and has all of this extra Easter eggy content, I'm really excited for it, but
So that's why I'm saying watch
I'm
these
more-
trailers. Have you seen the ones about like Spider-Man India, Spider-Woman, etc.?
no,
So
I
obviously,
probably
if you're not going,
should.
if you're in like media blackout, don't. But the reason that those are so good is not because it's like, oh, here's another awesome Spider-Man you're putting in, because it's goddamn Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
It's you're telling cool stories with these characters. Oh, you're making an interweaving web, yes, pun intended, between all of this that is going to be very interesting for Miles, for Gwen. Because I feel the need to remind y'all, going into this is not a Miles movie. This is a Gwen movie. They have said that. And that's what has me so excited for this. Obviously, it's still going to be about Miles, yada, yada, but it's going to be so much more about Gwen than the first one was. And I'm so excited, guys.
Yeah, for me, it just comes back to I love everything Pixar does and the way that they can tug at your heartstrings in a way that I don't think any other studio can do with new characters in a 2-hour film. And Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Like, I grew up watching Raiders, Last Crusade, like, on repeat. And knowing that James Mangold is at the helm of this thing, I know it's going to hurt. And I know it's going to do something very interesting with these characters. CG moments in the trailers aside, I'm more invested in seeing how that story wraps up, knowing we're going to be getting more Spider-Verse. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I get it.
I'm really excited for it. Spider-Man is my favorite fictional character of all time.
Yeah.
That being said, I know what I'm getting there. I'm more curious about what we're going to be getting out of Elemental or Indiana Jones.
I definitely feel you on that. I think for me, it's just there's also the added element of the animation of Spider-Verse.
Of course.
The first one
Yeah.
elevated animation to it's staying a level that we're seeing even Disney adjust things for it. Go watch our Wish reactions.
Dude, that trailer, I can't believe they're doing that movie the way they are with Wish. Like
This is
do
going
yourself
to
a favor. Pause this video or this podcast, wherever you are.
we're
consuming
probably
it.
going to wrap up soon.
Yeah, I don't think we're doing plot or anything like that.
No, we're an hour in. Yeah, we're an hour into this. What do you think?
watch this movie. Just go and watch the Wish trailer. Come back. Let us know what you thought of the Wish trailer in the comments of this YouTube video if you're watching it on YouTube. And that'll be that.
But yeah, there's an added element for me with Spider-Verse stuff. Is like the first one pushed it. This movie is going to push it again. How is it going to do that? And you can see some of it. There's a GIF going around right now of the shot with the spot that looks so cool.
Yeah, he's such an inspired choice especially for an animated movie. Like, there's just so much you can do with him. Like, I even remember watching the animated series where he was just, and the fun stuff they did with that, and him and Spider-Man.
Especially the Spot is such a loaded Spider-Man character too, because
there's
his
also
origins in Brand New Day, which is like one of the most hated Spider-Man stories ever.
Well, I don't think there's a way you can do the Spot justice without it being animation. Like, I couldn't see them doing the Spot in live action. The Spot doesn't really work in games because it would break the physics of the game. Unless you look at things like Portal, and unless we're going to get Valve to develop a Spider-Man game, it's not going to happen.
Well, you say that, but Ratchet and Clank.
Superliminal, I suppose, as well.
Like, the new Ratchet and Clank game did stuff like that the Spot could do. And
yeah, animation just feels like the right place for that character, and I'm very excited about that character in that film. But we're not here to talk about that film. We're here to talk about Guardians.
We're about to wrap up the podcast. We've talked.
I know,
but I also want to say with Ratchet and Clank in particular, hey, guess what that studio is also making? So.
Spider-Man and Wolverine.
Okay, all that aside, we talked about a lot of stuff.
Spider-Man.
There's a lot of movies coming. Of course, we're going to be reviewing them here on the show. There's so much coming. We will be doing an episode on Spider-Man. You're going to break the rules for that one, but oh well. We're all looking forward to that.
I'm already so tired.
Our next episode is going to be about The Little Mermaid because that's just around the corner. After that, it's Spider-Man. After that, it's Indy. After that, it's yada yada yada. There's so much happening. There's so much for us to get. Will we
get back to Muppets and Star Wars Visions? Maybe?
Muppets, absolutely. We're too big of Muppet fans not to.
Yeah.
Star Wars, we'll see. I still need to actually sit down and watch it, but we have plenty of stuff coming in the future. We're going to be super busy this summer, so keep up with us there. Brad, if people want to keep up with you, where can people find you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm at Mobile Syrup, gaming publication in Toronto. You can find me there, mobilesyrup.com, and on social media, I'm at Brad Shankar, BradShankar.
Remember, folks, we are everywhere now. I think finally, Mitch, have we finally set up accounts everywhere? I don't know. Where can people find us?
Technically, the accounts are everywhere. If you go to a platform and there's nothing posted on the account, not even a profile picture, that's because I did the one thing I said I would do and kind of just stopped there. But
What's
yes,
funny is I have all of our
everywhere.
TikToks in a Google Drive folder for you.
Yes, and I've adopted a puppy and am so tired.
Fair.
Just all the time.
Look, we're working on things. Sorry, TikTok content's been late lately. That's on me, because I've been working on our super secret, not really all that secret video essay project.
When that comes out, I will be the most annoying person on the internet, making sure everyone sees it, because I know how much work you've been putting into this thing, and it'll be great to see it come to light.
A little bit of.
But the problem is, Ron DeSantis has to stop doing stupid shit because it just keeps lengthening your video.
Yeah, seriously. I've been analyzing the actual Disney lawsuit, and when they updated that shit, I was like, God damn it! I already printed this out. You're telling me you updated it? Luckily, didn't.
But that'll come out. That'll come out when it comes out, and we're all very excited to.
We'll have a run into it because it's going to be a long one. It's also motion graphic heavy because I'm me, so there's a lot happening. Go check that out when we do that. Go check out our other stuff as well. We have plenty of other episodes up for you to check out. We've done stuff like Bad Batch. If you're really interested to go back and listen to more of us with Brad, you can go watch the Ant-Man Quantumania episode. Vamping because I don't remember what our last episode was.
I mean, Quantumania comes to Disney Plus in a couple of weeks, so reason to rewatch that.
Will we talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark coming up? Because, well, we won't do this anytime soon. Our last episode, though, was Peter Pan and Wendy. So if you want to hear about another brand new movie, go and check that out. Definitely a super interesting episode for us as far as the live action content goes. So highly recommend that episode.
Also, Disney keeps dropping, a gazillion trailers a week, so you can catch all those trailer reacts on the YouTube channel as well. I know we recently did Wish, which was a lot of fun. I know there's a new Haunted Mansion trailer that dropped literally right before we started recording this podcast. And so you could probably catch that now on the YouTube if you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to it. So do go check that out.
The other thing to shout out here, folks, is, of course, there is our weekly content. Our weekly content is currently on pause until season 2 of Loki starts.
I mean, I'm sure something else is going to pop up between now and October.
Oh, shoot, yeah, because Loki got delayed. Oh, no, sorry, Secret Invasion. We're talking Secret Invasion. Sorry. Look,
yeah.
It shows you that we're an hour and 15 minutes. I am, like, heavily tired and a little loopy, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, my God, that's like a month away.
Right? But yeah,
What the hell?
Plenty of stuff coming, but that is all in the future. We will see y'all then, but until then, have a magical day.
Excelsior.